Tuesday, March 3rd, 2026, meeting of the Select Board to order. It is our first meeting in our brand-new Town Hall and Community Center. There have been a lot of people that have helped make this facility possible, but the biggest thanks has to go to our taxpayers who had the willingness to support this project at additional taxes to themselves. So we are deeply appreciative of that, and our staff that works very hard for all of us, I'm sure will enjoy their brand new work spaces. So thank you again. This meeting is being recorded. The live capability is not here yet, but it will be soon. You know, Verizon still needs to do a couple of things. And with that, we'll begin with Warrant 2618 and Facilities Project Warrant 82.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Before you this evening, you have Warrant 2618 dated March 5th, 2026 for payroll coming in at $904,855. You'll see just under $800 for Eagle monitoring for this project. That'll be wrapping up soon. I think there's one more cycle that we have to go through that we're obligated to commit. For electric light, fire, and police, you'll see a little bit of overtime, as well as public works. You'll see about $12,500 for snow and about $2,600 for overtime, given the weather. That makes sense. Bills payable side, it's about $1.5 million. A few smaller things, an insurance claim that you'll see on the accounting line. That's to replace a police cruiser that was totaled. We'll get reimbursed for that through Maya. A couple smaller miscellaneous expenses. For MELD, you'll see about $675,000 for the purchase of power. And then for the schools, about $32,000 for transportation fees and just under $10,000 for cleaning. On the facilities project side, for warrant FP82, coming in at about $1.9 million. We're very much wrapping up things here, but stuff is still ongoing. So about $1.8 million of that is construction, and a little over $100,000 of that can be attributed to the install costs for the communications tower at the public safety building down the road a little bit there. So that is everything at this time.
Are there any questions?
I have a question. The police car that's going to be replaced, how old was the one that got totaled? Do we know?
Was Chief Sampson around?
Very.
Yeah.
No. I'm just wondering how that affects the rotation of when we get new ones. That's why I ask.
It was the last newest one Mark purchased, yeah.
Okay. So not far off anyway from, okay. That's all.
Any other questions? If not, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept warrant 2618 and FP 82.
Second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Unanimous. Next, we'll skip the minutes since it didn't get in our packet and go to town administrator updates and reports.
Thank you. A few things going on around town. It's been pretty quiet. Just kidding. It's been chaotic. We closed the doors on Memorial Hall last Thursday, February 26th. We had a handful of staff in town for that Friday to help coordinate the move. Wakefield Moving was in town, and we moved several hundred crates worth of files and other odds and ends between some from police and fire, almost entirely Memorial Hall, Council on Aging, as well as a lot of the files up at 195 North Main. So that went fairly smoothly, given the scale of the project. I would say it was largely successful. Staff arrived to the new building this Monday. We were closed to the public, but we spent the time unpacking. As you can see, there's still some totes floating around the building, but for the most part, everything has been identified and put in its correct place. A huge list of thank yous relative to the move in this project. Obviously, thank you to this board for your confidence in our ability as a team to get this thing over the goal line. It was a huge undertaking and truly a team effort. Thank you to the building committee for all the work that they've done. A countless amount of meetings and oversight and guidance and direction that they have provided over the past few years, so that's certainly appreciated. Thank you, of course, to the community for their support, the residents of this town and businesses of this town for their support, for their tax dollars that they've contributed to this project. It's a huge investment. I cannot state enough how big of an investment it is for a community to make and how unusual it is for a community to make that type of commitment to their future. It's really very impressive. So thank you to the people of Middleton for that. Also, thank you to the work of our IT team who fairly seamlessly, and this shows their level of preparation, but fairly seamlessly moved things almost entirely over the weekend and stood things up in time for the team to be here. That's an almost entire town's worth of operations, and everything for the most part is working. So huge kudos to them. Thank you to the DPW and MELD for helping move some items over the past several days, and I'm sure we'll probably be leaning on them over the coming weeks as well for some odds and ends, so we definitely appreciate them for that. Thank you to Scott Fitzpatrick, our building commissioner. He has put in a lot of work on this building, between the two buildings and the grounds as well, making sure everything's up to code and making sure that we could get occupancy for the building in time. He really went all out, and that is certainly appreciated. Thank you, of course, to all our staff in general for all the packing and unpacking. As much as we are appreciative for this new space and the investment the community made, it was a lot of work on the staff as well. And they've done it with a smile on their face by and large. So we are appreciative of that as well. And honestly, the list goes on and on. I do want to cap off thanking the Historic Society for helping fill our cases down in the lobby. If you didn't see it, check it out on the way out. Some really cool historic items relative to the history of the golf course here, as well as the Brown family for donating a framed collection of historic golf course items. It's pretty neat, so take a look. MELD met last week to, shifting gears here, MELD met last week to discuss their annual pilot payment to the town, and it looked like based on the formula it was going to come in about $50,000 under what is typical. They've generously committed to hold steady at $260,000, which particularly in a difficult budget year, a $50,000 hit going in the wrong direction when we're desperately scraping to go in the right direction really would have hurt us. So thank you to them. They are an excellent partner, and I really appreciate having them to work with. And then just a note, Capital Budget Saturday is going to be held this upcoming Saturday, March 7th. Our department heads have been hard at work putting some real serious thought into immediate capital needs, but also trying to project out over the next 5 years what we anticipate coming down the road just to help smooth out some of those costs. So thank you for the work they put into submitting that. And thank you, of course, to Jackie and Sarah for all of their help kind of sifting through that and bundling it all together. So we had a good internal meeting on it today, and I look forward to sitting down with this board and the Finance Committee on Saturday to go through those for the upcoming fiscal year. Thank you.
Any questions?
I do not.
Middleton Municipal Complex update.
I think we're covered for now. Thank you.
All right, next we go to department budget presentations for FY27 from our town clerk.
Where would you like?
Wherever you're comfortable.
Oh, I'm comfortable. Maybe I'll sit at the table. First one in.
That's right.
With me?
I don't.
I'm a little tired. Yeah. I'm a little tired. We've been a little busy.
For move and then unmoving and.
I'm glad to be almost unpacked. And Mel went above and beyond today to move all of the election equipment. And the police department, we thank them for their assistance in preserving our chain of custody of all of the important things that we move. We loaded up almost everything. We have probably about 100 crates left to move from Memorial Hall, but we'll get there. Those are all.
They're here
Everything
in their new
here
home.
needs to be here and locked. So I'm glad today is over, and I'll tell you, I have to thank Derek Rice from WT Rich. He is amazing, and we are so lucky to have him and to have kept him on. He's outstanding. He has been a great support to my office. I'm sure he is for everybody, but he stepped up. He saw me lugging things, and he just stepped right in. He's been fabulous, and I think that we really need to acknowledge him. We're very lucky, again.
Again,
Derek Rice. Excellent, excellent guy. He locked himself in the vault with me, so I wouldn't be alone, so we could practice getting out. He was a gentleman. So he came in with me, and we were able to get out of the vault.
That is priceless.
Yeah, that was good. So, at least we can let out. Yeah, you have to know how to do that. You know, that door can close behind me, and no one would hear me. Could you imagine not hearing me? Yeah. So anyway, so I wanted to just make sure I acknowledged some of the people that have been.
And you have some additional challenges in the move that other departments don't have, like getting out a mailing and notifying all the voters that the polling.
Because we're changing our polling location. So we will have a townwide mailing to notify every household that their polling location has changed. So that will come as soon as the Secretary of State's office comes out and approves our polling location, which we hope will be soon, and maybe we'll even have a state system over here working. We don't have our state system, so we're still working in the other building for now.
Does the state relocate that for you?
And they don't have much experience because not many communities change town halls very frequently.
Well,
Yeah,
they do, but they remind us that they have 351 cities and towns, and
What exactly is it that they have, that we're talking about?
it's a dedicated phone line that comes in. It's not an internet-based system, so it's a dedicated phone line that's run in just to house the state central voter database system. So Comcast, they're working with Comcast, it goes through another vendor, and then another vendor, and ultimately the state comes and completes the circuit.
You're live. That's all they're gonna do.
So we're hoping, Jackie, did you tell me, or somebody told me today, they heard, oh, maybe Liam had said, probably in a couple of weeks. So we'll see.
Meanwhile, you still have to go over there once a day, twice a day, or, okay.
Yeah, I mean, with nomination papers coming in, I need to certify them. That's the only way I can certify them. Census is still rolling in. We're still knee-deep in census, so all that's done over there. Voter registrations are up, so every time a transmission comes through, we have to access it through the state. The registry, every time someone goes to the registry, we get a transmission, so we have to assess it. So we're busy with that.
Well, it's an added layer.
Yeah, it would be good if we weren't there, didn't need to be there. If it was here, people come to the counter, and they will come to the counter, and we have to tell them we'll get back to you. See. But I'm going to see if we can't push the Secretary of State's office to move it along.
Anything we can do to help?
If there is, I love it.
You want us to call? We could call.
They've been, I mean, we've really, I'm going to call and see if I can't charm them.
You do that.
So we'll see. But I'll let you know if I need you to rattle some cages.
One of us would be willing to make a phone call, and Brian may be a really good contact on that one.
Maybe.
So I can put a little bug in his ear.
Yeah, Justin's been talking to our delegation, and maybe I'll grab them tonight, see if they can.
Why, we'll bring that up, yeah.
I'll talk to them and see if I can't move them along. So anyway, but that's not why I'm here.
Have to look forward to in FY27.
Same thing you look forward to every year from the town clerk. So, as you can see, my election budget increased. That's because we have 3 elections. This year's been a quiet year, next year not so much. We have 3 elections. So it's triple what I paid, what we spent last year. That's pretty simple. What can we look forward to? A busy election year. Looking forward to early voting here. Elections here, all in the same building, just wheeling our stuff around. It's so nice. With an elevator. With an elevator, can you imagine? What else is happening? Where we upgraded our tabulators. We have all brand-new tabulators, which is nice. The ballot boxes have been retrofitted, so we saved a tremendous amount on those. We didn't have to replace those. We're getting all new poll pads, should you approve it on Saturday. We have to upgrade our poll pads at all of our check-in devices. So much like an iPad, its life doesn't last long. So we're updating all of the poll pads versus going back to paper, because people wouldn't want us to go back to paper. What else is happening? Anything else in my budget you see that you're concerned with? I'm hoping I have enough postage put away. It depends. It's our best guess, based on the November 24 election, that we have enough postage for mail-in voting. We can anticipate the state sending the voting postcards again. So folks, all voters will get those postcards. Everybody fills them out. Whether they want a mail-in ballot or not, they send it in. They check all elections, and we're obligated to send out the 3,000 plus ballots on average, even for a town election, because they don't have room on the card to exclude it. So people check all elections. So that's the only thing I get concerned with is our postage, because postage keeps going up and it's expensive to mail ballots. And then, of course, people don't get them, so I'm sending another ballot. So that's the only thing I think I put enough in. I usually pad my budget pretty well. So, so you'll see that there's a lot of postage money. Anything else jumping at you? I don't have anything out of the ordinary. It seems that everything you see pretty much stayed the same. The costs, you know, some of the costs have gone up. Some of the maintenance costs for the tabulators, poll pads, the automark, the assistive device, you know, all that programming costs, they've gone up. And so we see a shift, a little bit of a shift on some of those things. Replacing envelopes as needed, just with the new address so that we don't confuse too many people. And our Laserfish project is growing, so we're carrying some of that, but I think that's probably going to come out of IT soon, right? But you'll see a jump in Laserfish. And what else went up? That's really all I can, I'm identifying. Anything? What else you want to hear, Costa?
Concerns about your department?
No? Anybody? Well, that was easy.
Well done.
Oh, thank you, I appreciate that. And town elections, nomination papers are very slow. I've been advertising it. We're hoping people will show some interest and come in and pull their papers. Papers are due March 31st. That's going to come right up on us. But other than that, we're good to go. I'm up for re-election this year. and I did pull my papers. And I will grab you later to sign them. And that's about the news, other than we're tired.
All good news.
Righty?
Eileen, before you leave, what is the official name of that phone line?
Oh, the Central Voter Registry for the state. Yep. Some will say the CVR, but it's a Central Voter Registry.
I like the whole name.
And we can get you other information if you really, sometimes you don't want to push too hard, but, right?
For food for thought in case we,
If we could get it going. And the weather, I guess, isn't helping Comcast get the work done.
100%.
So, but it would help if we could get things going.
I agree.
Anything else? Perfect. All right, thank you for having me.
Mr. Chair, our friends at Masco are running a little behind due to the weather, so if we could do number 4 for now, just to buy some time.
I was planning on that. All right, we go to item 4, finalizing an electric vehicle charging policy.
Good evening. So in the packet tonight, we did get the assessment, and I do want to thank one of our Middleton residents, Robert Craig, who works for the town of Rockport, was watching our last meeting, and I just want to shout him out because he watches our meetings and sent me this spreadsheet. He's on the Sustainability Director's listserv and helped me with all this research. So I just want to thank him for that. So this is a sample of all of the cities and towns currently doing electric vehicle charging. And what my recommendation would be at this time is to follow the path of Marblehead. They're our neighbor here on the North Shore, and they too have a municipal light department. So that would mean that we are going to be setting up our rates at 20 cents per kilowatt hour. And then we'd also set up a fee for if you're idling at $1 an hour after 6 hours. And so that's what we would propose for the rates. Whatever rates you do set, I did the training yesterday with OP Connect, who is the vendor who's going to be helping us manage these. And they're going to charge 10% admin on top of whatever we set for a rate. But that 10% admin comes back to us too. So this is what we're looking to charge, and then that admin rate comes back to us as well. This ensures that the amount of money that we are raising from the electric vehicle chargers pays the electric bill, pays any maintenance fees, and then also pays for the staff time that we spend on processing. If we have to put in a ticket to get one repaired with OP Connect through our facilities director, things like that, it covers all of those different administrative expenses, and that's standard with OP Connect across the board. And so that would be my recommendation tonight to the board after reviewing all of these different items. We can set the EV stations at public safety and at town hall differently, and maybe someday that's something we want to explore. I think right now it would be helpful to just get started with the same rate at both buildings, see what type of usage we start to get. We'll get usage reports on a weekly, monthly, and quarterly basis. So what I'd like to do is set these for now and then report back to the board based on our first three or 4 months of usage and see how we're doing with usage. And then we can revisit the rates at that time. We can, at a meeting of this body, set them at any time. One of the options that they can do in the software is have higher or lower rates for the different types of business hours. So maybe we want to have higher rates during business hours so that we can maintain more of those parking spaces for our operations, or vice versa. There's a lot of flexibility, but I think right now, just to get started, let's start simply. And that would be my recommendation.
Yeah, do you know how many chargers Marblehead has and what they generate in usage?
So that's the one thing that I don't have from all these cities and towns is their independent usage. It's something we can keep digging for, but in between last meeting and this meeting, I was able to grab this spreadsheet and start to review this data. If that's something, I can get that specifically from just Marblehead. I don't know if I can get it from everybody.
No, I mean,
Yeah, just the one where
the closest thing, comparable to ours, so it's more curiosity than anything else to see, you know, how many charges they have and how often they're being used, right?
We know their town administrator fairly well, so we can certainly get that data for you.
How many do we have?
26 between the two buildings.
What's the breakdown, do you know?
Oh, that's a great question, Jeff, I'm sorry.
I mean, so are we losing a lot of parking spaces because of these 26 chargers? Is it like electric car parking only, or so anybody can pull into that spot?
Yep.
It's not dedicated just for cars charging?
Correct.
Okay, good.
Okay. Any other questions?
Yeah, no, I agree, like, get it going, that is the closest, up to us. And then when we do want to set something and we have some, figures, may bring Meld in and, get their input as well.
We did reach out to Mel.
Yeah.
I worked with Manoli. I sent him the draft policy that you reviewed last week, gave him some updates. They're happy to work with us if we need more feedback, but for them, this is just another meter that they read. There's not a lot of other work there. So we did reach out and connect with them, but not something that's really like part of their portfolio typically. So, but they'll help us, if we needed something, they would, but, for them, I don't wanna say they don't, it doesn't really matter to them from a policy perspective.
Gotcha.
Anything else? If not, is there a motion to accept Jackie's recommendation of adopting a Marblehead-type policy?
So moved.
Is there a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. Next, we'll go to item 5, which is an appointment of a police officer, Sarah Satzler. Chief.
The weather is kind of slowing everybody down, so both of the people that are coming up are running a little bit behind.
Okay, so we'll move to commendation of Sergeants Carpenter and Officer Bouchard.
Basically, same situation.
Oh, okay.
Yes, it was a quarter of, they were both able to, but they both texted me and said, it's just traffic is really tight.
Mr. Chair, if you'd like to start item 3, I can talk a little bit about the Drinking Water State Revolving Fund, and then we can come back around to the warrant when Masco gets here.
Okay, we'll do that.
So item 3 on the warrant to review items for the May 12th, 2026 annual town meeting. As the board is aware, we've been running through a fairly extensive list for anticipated warrant articles. Given that it's now early March, there's the intention to close this fairly soon. There's a few items that we have to wait for. I know the proposed zoning changes, for example, have to make their way through the planning board. There was some conversation around town about that. So we want to allow them the time and space to do that. But in the meantime, I think maybe I'll just go from the top for a refresher, because I don't think we've gone through all of them, and we typically don't have this amount of time. So number 1, hearing committee reports is a usual and customary report. Number 2 is to pay bills of prior fiscal years. We do have a couple of smaller items we anticipate to come through for that. Number 3, a snow and ice deficit. I think given the way the winter has gone so far and given the way it is outside right now, I think we may have to dip into that, but we still have a ways to go, so we'll continue to monitor that. Retroactive pay for library collective bargaining agreement. So as you may recall, the library started a union. They voted to unionize out of cycle. So that led to us issuing or entering into an agreement that's going to require retro pay, basically because there wasn't a special town meeting this past fall. So we'll clean that up this May. The number 6, current year use of stabilization for the Middleton municipal complex to reduce borrowing. There was a lot of conversation about that account, and I think the early intention in the pre-me days, 3 or 4 years ago, was to make an effort to take away that peak year of borrowing for taxpayers, and so there was a creation of the stabilization account. What we're looking at now, though, in 2026, now that most of the dust has settled, is that we can effectively accomplish the same thing by drawing off that, paying some of the project costs up front, and then just not going out to borrow for that piece. So why pay interest on something we don't have to borrow for if we have cash in hand? So our finance director, Sarah Wood, has been running the numbers on that, and I think we can probably do a little more in-depth presentation on that point in an upcoming meeting. Number 7, same thing, use of free cash just to reduce the borrowing. Yep.
How the project has come in terms of costs and some of these things, what do you anticipate the borrowing being in the neighborhood of?
That's a great question. So as you may recall, in the fall of, I think it was October 12th, 23, there was an annual town meeting to go back for an additional $9.75 million just to kind of make up some runaway construction costs. Conservatively, I think between paying down on one side and then us being really conservative with the spending on the other, we'll probably need about half. But don't quote me just yet. We're not quite out of the woods. There's still, the green needs to be worked out in some other items as well. So, but otherwise good news. And I think just once again, credit to the oversight of the building committee, who, they've done a great job throughout in working with us. And then of course our work internally in town hall, we've been very careful with that money. From the jump, we've had a lot of conversations, and Chair Renaud and I have talked a lot about the fact that just because that money was appropriated doesn't mean we need to spend it. And so I want to make sure we continue with that commitment to the taxpayer. For fiscal 27 financial articles, we are looking at the fiscal 27 approval of compensation for elected officials at number 7. Number 8, the fiscal 27 omnibus budget. That's just our typical operating budget. To date, we're currently running a deficit of about $300K, so we continue to work on that. Significant improvement from where we were, though, at about 680. So some good work there, and I think some later conversations with the State House delegation relative to revenue and UGA specifically. Number 9, the fiscal 27 community preservation budget for debt service projects and expenses. So that's existing projects. And then number 10, the fiscal 27 community preservation budget for a new project. So any anticipated new initiatives coming through town. Looking at number 11 to authorize the fiscal 27 revolving fund spending limits. We don't anticipate a ton of changes there, but we'll bring something forward in an upcoming meeting. Probably review it at Budget Saturday. Number 12, the fiscal 27 SESD, or the South Essex Sewerage District Enterprise Budget. Number 13, the fiscal 27 Water Enterprise Budget. Number 14, to accept a sum from the Middleton Electric Light Department, MELD. That's the pilot payment I referenced earlier. Once again, thank you to MELD for their commitment in helping us out in a tough budget year and maintaining that $260,000 level. Number 15, transfers to reserve accounts. Some things that I know that Sarah's still working out with the Finance Committee. Fiscal 27, the overall capital budget. Once again, that's going to be discussed at the upcoming March 7th Capital Budget Summit. And that is open to the public and recorded if people are interested. It's several hours long, and it is interesting, genuinely interesting. Number 17, the Masco Regional Capital Request. So this is just their general typical capital. We're still waiting on the list, but we know that Masco is going to join us a little later, so we'll discuss that then. Number 18, MSBA language for the roof and HVAC project at Masco. That needs to be voted separately because it's part of the Masco Building Authority. They have specific legal language that we have to go through, and we can talk about that a little bit later as well. Number 19, the Fuller Meadow Roof Construction Debt Capital Request. So as you may recall, in the most recent annual town meeting, you all had appropriated for the feasibility phase. They went through the feasibility phase. They were accepted to the MSBA program. They're a year ahead of where the Masco initiative is, and now they're coming back for construction dollars. Number 20, the Masco Regional MSBA OPM feasibility, which we'll cover later. And then also adding a new addition for this week, potentially a Masco operating override, which I'm sure the Masco folks will speak to as well. The second new addition this evening is we got some good news this morning for Paul Goodwin, our DPW superintendent. We've been accepted to the Drinking Water State Revolving Fund on their draft plan, which is a pretty good win for us, so I guess to set the table a little bit, issues relative to PFAS have been popping up, pretty much everywhere, but especially in communities that have old dumps, of which we have 2, landfills. And so as part of that, we have annual testing requirements, certain wellheads that are put in strategic areas that's monitored by Mass DEP. And we check that annually to make sure the PFAS levels aren't increasing or that they aren't beyond what's an appropriate drinking level. What happened was, over the past couple of years, DEP has made those minimal allowable amounts more strict. And so we haven't seen an increase in PFAS. It's the same as it's been for the past 20 years. They just raised the bar a little bit, which unfortunately put us in a situation where we had to test private wells adjacent to the area. And in those instances, if we saw hits for PFAS, we were obligated to deliver water and then work with those residents, which we're happy to do. It's the right thing to do, but to get in a filtration system, a POET system, so that their household drinking water is free of PFAS. So that's a pretty significant expense, as you can imagine, delivering water to an entire neighborhood for a long period of time, or installing, at this point in time, it's only a handful, but what could be dozens of filtration systems, and then the town being on the hook for maintaining those over time could be a pretty significant expense. So we had worked with CDM Smith, who's an engineering company that specializes in this work, to apply to the Drinking Water State Revolving Fund, because one of the allowable uses is for a community to apply to, for example, extend a water line. So if we extend town water to this neighborhood, we don't need to deliver water there. They don't need a special filter for their private well, because now they're on town water, right? That's the hope there. So it's a pretty extensive cost. Some of the underground issues there's a lot of ledge. It's not really the easiest place to run a water line. But what the benefit of this is, they're not paying for the entirety of the project, the $6.75 million, but they do give a very low interest rate, which I know doesn't sound that dazzling for non-financial people. It used to be 0, but it's running out of money. But it's still low enough compared to the typical market that we would end up saving high hundreds of thousands, low millions over the course of a loan for that type of project.
Is it part a grant, part a loan, or it all has to be paid back?
So it depends on the program. Sometimes they do have forgiveness. I don't think we're going to qualify for that element, just given the town's financial outlook. But it's early in the process, and they're going to iron out those details as we go through. But that's an excellent question. So as part of that, kind of similar to the MSBA process, the town has to vote to take on the full expense. So it would mean the town committing to the $6.67 million to extend that water line. And it will be, as an aside, mentioned in the Capital Summit on Saturday. So we're going to go into maps, and you can kind of see where everything is. But the town has to commit to that entire amount. It's not going to hit our debt service until 2030. So we'll have a few years to map that out. I made Finance Director Wood aware of it today, so she's projecting out what that would look like. But at the end of the day, it's something that we're probably going to have to do anyway. So if we can do it at a low interest rate, that's great news.
What would be the term of the payback, do you know?
Well, usually you want to make it not as long or longer than the life of the work you're doing. But that said, water lines last a long time.
Do they have a max that you're allowed, or?
So I think you can go up to 30. But if we can make it work, I'd advise 20, but let's see how it projects out. And then working things on the other side, ATA Bresnahan has been doing a lot of good work connecting with Congressman Moulton's office, looking at their community project initiative program, and we've put in a request there as well. And we're hopeful that we get some good news for that. That might help defray that cost. So instead of borrowing $6.7 million, maybe we'll be borrowing $5.7 million. So if we're hitting it on both ends like that, it's going to be a pretty significant savings to the town. Moving on from that, other items that you're familiar with. Number 20, the WUMP revolving fund to create and set a limit. Number 21, comprehensive zoning that I referenced earlier has to go through a hearing process with the planning board. Number 22, police department retirement age, something we're working with on legal counsel to extend that from 65 to 67. Number 23, field use revolving fund. Number 24, the leasing of the food pantry space at 105 South Main Street. This building directly under us, I think, right now. We're still working out the logistics of that. Number 25, a citizen's petition that was submitted relative to recall language in the charter. And food pantry's on there twice. So, yeah, sorry, specific to the seats for Masco for the school committee. So that's everything we have at this point in time, and then now we're at 5:45 where we should be. So I don't know, have you heard?
Is 24 and 26, is there a difference between those two?
No, it was a typo. It was a read.
Oh, okay,
Yep.
And there's 220, so, you know,
okay.
two
Yeah,
typos.
we'll renumber it. Yeah.
All right, at this point, we are not ready for any of our other,
Just a full side cop is on an accident, not in an accident, on an accident call right now.
okay?
So he's tied up in, getting off, he's coming from Boston. I guess the traffic out there is really slow.
Well,
Recess to 6.
yeah. Well, I think that's the best we can do at this point, so. Public comment, is there anyone that wishes to make a public comment? All right, hearing none, we'll move on to hear from one of our Masco reps, Trevor Courier, about budget issues that may be up for town meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for inviting me to speak here tonight. I know Masco appreciates it, and we also appreciate you coming to our community discussion that we held in the library last week to discuss a lot of these same issues. So I think you guys have these slides in your packet. I could be wrong.
They were emailed separately.
So if you want to pull them up and follow along with me, might be helpful. So these charts, these charts go through the timeline we're looking at here for the Masco HVAC and roof replacement project. And as all of you know, some in the public may not know, but we got accepted into the MSBA reimbursement program, which is huge for the district. It's up to 40% reimbursement rates on all eligible costs. So to kick it off, phase 1 is the schematic design phase. And so at the end of October, we were voted in to be invited into this phase of the MSBA, their program. And that, from the time that we're voted in, usually you get 90 days to secure the funding for that portion of the project, the schematic design. And OPM, however, MSBA is trying to work with municipalities around town meetings. So they actually started our clock yesterday. So from yesterday, we have 90 days to approve of the money for the schematic design and OPM costs, which you see in the chart is looking like 1.7 million. And so that would require a debt exclusion article from all 3 member towns, and which would require a town meeting vote and then separately a ballot question. And that has to pass in all 3 towns. In order for us to receive that funding and begin that work, make sure I didn't forget anything else.
Passes 2 towns, it fails 1.
Doesn't pass.
And then so with the OPM and designer, both are assigned by the MSBA. So they'll assign us one from their list, and then separately we negotiate independent contracts with them. And then so from that point, then it starts really, once we secure the funding, it starts a 14-month-long process of getting the schematic designs done, getting very firm numbers, the most firm we're gonna have, and which is a long time. So we get the money July 1 if it passes at all 3 town meetings and at the ballot. And then we're not anticipating being done with that stage until September of 2027. So that is a long time, but we want to be thorough, and that's what the MSBA is anticipating. So, and then at that point, now that we have the total cost estimate for the project, the MSBA will take another vote to advance us along in their process and accept us into the construction phase of the project, which also has a 90-day window as well. So once they vote again in October, at October, we will then have 90 days to secure the funding for the entire project.
And ballot votes in the November, December timeframe.
Which is tough. Because, you know, a special town meeting, you don't want a $70 million ask at a special town meeting. And so I did ask because originally I thought they would work with us at that end too, but they will not. That's a firm MSBA 90-day window that they put. Once it kicks off, they want that process to keep going. They don't want it to be stalled. So
Much risk that they wouldn't accept us into the construction part, or usually if they,
it's a firm.
they'll accept you for the second part?
Yes. We did ask the superintendent that he's not aware of any district that hasn't been able to move forward if they have secured the funding in time. So good question, but I'm not anticipating that being a problem as long as, you know, the project keeps moving along in the right direction on time. So again, that would be roughly, we're anticipating $70 million for the total construction cost. That number would be split amongst the communities. It's not an even third, a third, a third. We apportion capital costs a little differently. And again, that would be a debt exclusion article. So approval at all 3 town meetings and all 3 town-wide elections.
That 70 million, what, roughly the breakdown for HVAC and roof?
The next chart. If you want to wait, we can go there if you want. So like I said, we're anticipating up to 40% reimbursement right now, and it's a pay-as-you-go model. So once we have invoices to give them, they will, you know, pay us as, it's not, you know, all at the end or all up front, it's a pay-as-you-go.
Approve all of the design money, all of the construction money. And I think the language in each town has the big number, the total number, not the town's share, because the town's share is based on a yearly split of the debt service when you get there. So that
Authorization to spend up to that amount. And then so also another piece of it, we anticipate taking out bands and then rolling it in eventually into bonds. Yeah, right.
Middleton share could go up and down over the life of the loan based on enrollment?
yes, because every year when you get to the bond,
Yeah,
there's a bond payment every year.
Right.
And that payment gets split on a 5-year rolling
on a
average.
5-year average, okay.
But of the students in the building. Whereas the operating budget is all the students. So it's done a little different.
Okay.
The percentages are
It's a
pretty
5-year
close.
rolling, that was my question.
It's pretty
Yeah,
close.
okay.
And then so to Jeff's question about the cost of the project and the breakdown. So right now, we're going with a heat pump model because there'll be tweaks along the way when we get the designer and the OPM to kind of start picking materials and whatnot. And we have just recently done a study that also happened to point us towards heat pumps as the best solution for our campus, which the MSBA, this is the first year that heat pumps are an option to be reimbursable. And so we're the first round of schools to be doing both a roof and heat pumps at the same time. So they're going to be learning while we're learning. And so this next chart that in your packet, Jeff Sands came up, worked with MSBA to come up with these numbers, because like I said, it's their first run at it, so they benefited from the process too. And so looking at total project cost with the designer and the designer and OPM fees, the heat pumps, it's looking like $55,650,000, which, like I said, remember, we are eligible for up to 40% reimbursement. And then the roof is coming in at 10,500,000, a little over, 10,584,000. And then, so to break down those costs, the design, estimated total designer and OPM cost is 8,347,000, for the heat pumps, and then for the roof, it's 1.5 million for the, total designer and OPM costs. And then for the schematic design and OPM costs, it's, for the heat pumps, it's 1,460,000. And then for the roof, it's 277,000. And then, so that's where we get our 1.7 number for this town meeting. When you look at the schematic design and OPM costs associated with both aspects of our project. But yeah, if you guys have any more questions, I'm happy to try to answer them.
You know, this is, you know, the first foray of the MSBA into heat pumps. They don't have a lot of experience in what the costs of projects are. So
Possible it's overstated.
650,000 is a number that MSBA, it's like, you know, told Masco to use. But because they don't have a lot of experience, it's probably artificially high just to cover. So hopefully when the design is actually done, the number will be lower.
So that estimate, they're anticipating about $150 per square foot for the HVAC estimate.
If you went with gas, it's not reimbursable, or?
Is not, and when you factor in the 40% reimbursement, it's not, it's more expensive than it would be if we went with this program and the heat pumps being reimbursed at 40%, without being reimbursed and just going in-kind replacement.
This is much, much more money than like-kind replacement, but you get the 40% back. So if it weren't for the reimbursement, we would likely not be going with heat pumps.
I can't speak to that. I know the other towns want us to go the greenest option we can, and this is somewhat of a happy medium, I believe.
So you think the 70 million minus the 40% is definitely less money than going with gas, you think?
Yes, we just had a study. If you remember, a few town meetings ago, this board had requested that we get another study done to know more options that we had, and that study was done, and it's 150 pages. If you want me to share it, I will happily do that.
But it was significantly more, the other options.
The 40%, yeah.
Without the 40%.
Not as significant, I don't think as you think it might be, but it was definitely millions.
So when people are asked to vote for the 1.7 for the designer cost, we need to tell them that this is in preparation of something bigger, the construction money, so that people aren't surprised when a few months or a year and a half down the road, they're asked for the big money. So just so that they know that it's coming.
I think, like you said, it's important that we're kind of starting to tell this story all along about the shape of our building and the fact that the roof is over 25 years old. Our HVAC is failing. We have rooftop units that were catching on fire a few years ago. We had to patch the roof to get us a few more years, and our building management system is completely obsolete. So telling that story.
System is part of the 55 million in the heat pumps. So, okay. Any questions?
Just hopes.
Yeah, is there any clarity yet on just the regular capital ask?
Talk about that. The ask that we're anticipating may be funded through free cash. So we're doing some digging. It's not likely, given the financial situation in some of the other member towns, that would be feasible. So where part of it was replacing, and I want to say 900 Chromebooks and 30 Chromebook carts, because Google said they no longer would service those Chromebooks, and they were going obsolete, kind of forcing our hand to have to replace them. We are looking at areas within our operating budget this year while we're closing out to see if there's an opportunity to at least do 300 of them, and then just ask for the other 300 and get to the next 300 some point down the road. But the administration feels we'll be able to get by with 600 because the big need for them comes at our testing times. Although MCAS isn't legally mandated that students take it anymore, we still offer it. And we also do.
So you're in a little bit better spot.
I think we would be in, I think we might have to offer it. The students might not have to take it. And also AP testing, PSATs for our sophomores and college-bound students. So we feel as though we can get by with 600, and so we're looking into options to reduce that figure.
What do you anticipate the total, not the breakdown, but just around what total do you think?
I don't want to give you a number that's going to be wrong because I just can't remember it off the top of my head.
Version it was like 3 something, and in another version it was closer to 6. So it's somewhere between the two numbers.
Closer to the 3, I think. Also in that is a curb cut. We need to do a curb cut to be ADA compliant on the campus, kind of right near the entrance of the middle school heading towards Topsfield. And there was one more thing on that list. In terms of our regular operating budget, the committee is looking at what we had almost 3.5 hour meeting last night, listening to advocates on behalf of various programs that unfortunately we are looking at reducing because we are in a very, very similar position to where we were last year. So, and we're going to be making very tough decisions to try to deliver a budget that is that the town will be able to swallow, hopefully.
I know that Topsfield had asked you guys to certify the budget a week earlier than normal, so you'd be certifying it this week or next week?
After that, yeah. I believe for some reason the 11th is that a Wednesday?
Yes.
Day we have circled, so I guess that would be next week.
All right.
Deliberative sessions.
The capital, there was the Chromebooks, the Chromebook carts, the ramp, and some design and permitting work for the softball, track and field, and tennis.
So we had, for the softball and the track and field, we have had a Title IX question come up that we're trying to address, and an ADA question come up. Our campus is not very ADA compliant once you get outside of the building, so we will be trying to address that, and more to come on that story, but we're trying to address that. And similar to, like you said before about our debt exclusion article, if voters don't feel like they want to fund the whole project where we're repairing those, whether that's the track, the tennis courts, or making the rest of our campus ADA and Title IX compliant, then they should not vote for that free cash article. Another piece that I forgot to bring up about the roof HVAC and the MSBA project. One piece that I've been very concerned about is that if we spend over a certain percentage on renovating our building, we have to get the rest of our building up to ADA entitlement, all the compliance measures, it has to be fully compliant. If and when that does happen, that is also a reimbursable cost through the program. So it kind of lessened my worries about that a little bit.
Whatever it takes. It's all reimbursable?
At 100%?
No, 40%. It has to be tied to the project. So for example, we, if they have to redo the electrical system to be able to handle this, that is a part and would be eligible for reimbursement at 40%.
Make the whole building current due to spending a certain amount over the value of the building. There's going to be a lot of things that have nothing to do with HVAC or roof that you might have to do.
To get within line with the law, we were told by MSBA that that would be reimbursable.
What, everything, or just things having to do with the roof and HVAC?
If they had to do anything additional, that it would be 40% reimbursable. Because it's the project of the school to become compliant.
So, do we know, like, the value of the number that they're working with, like the value of the building, to see what gets us to that percentage?
Well, if you go by assessed value, it's the $70 million project is well above 50% of the.
So it's definitely going to trigger that. And I was initially concerned that it had to be the entire campus, but I found out that it's anything within or in the direct surrounding perimeter of the building, so.
Is there a time period, like if you did the roof this year and did the HVAC 2 years later, is it still cumulative, or how does that work?
Together because the HVAC sits on the roof, so it's a very integrated system. That's why we're lucky to be a part of this program, because we're gonna have the OPM and designer are looking at the same thing at the same time, and so they can integrate those systems a lot better than if we were to piecemeal this project.
And is the ADA portion of it tied, is like reimbursement held until that's completed, or is that?
So reimbursement is done as we go. So that we'll send them an invoice if and when that problem arises. And
Voice from the contractor, MSBA will pay $400,000, the district will pay $600,000.
So do you think there's a chance that going with gas might not put us over that threshold and going with electric does?
in terms of the ADA, I don't believe it.
Should be considered.
I just don't think,
More money
we're gonna get,
that's paying 60% for all this other stuff, that actually, that has to be looked at.
and yes, that is gonna be looked at.
Okay.
Not even decided on heat pumps yet. We're planning that, but once we get an OPM and designer to come in and we're really going down that process of picking materials and doing all that, that's when we're gonna have our firm estimates. Everything's gonna be laid on the table and we'll be able to make a clear decision.
Estimates for heat pumps, right? In design.
He's going to give his opinion on what to put in there and which is the most advantageous
But costs
cost.
for both.
Correct. We're in the program, so right now we can't back out of doing heat pumps and expect to get reimbursed for the roof. We're in it for both. So if we do have to back out, we're gonna lose out on the 40% of reimbursement on the $11 million, $5 million estimate on the roof.
Any other questions? Anything else, Trevor?
No, but if you guys down the road have any more questions, again, we appreciate the open dialogue and communication here, so feel free to reach out about that or any citizens petitions you may need, may have questions on. I'm happy to come, hopefully a little earlier than tonight, but yeah, thank you. I know.
We will adjourn and go downstairs for a short dedication. We'll be back. All right. We're back in order, and our next item is an appointment of a police officer. Chief, I turn it over to you.
Thanks for having me here tonight. Today, I'm here to recommend Sarah Stelzer as our next police officer. Sarah works for the Department of Defense Police with the U.S. Army. She's been with that department since 2023. She's attended the full-time, it's the Uniform Police Training Program, which is held at Glencoe, Georgia, the FLETC Center, which the Massachusetts MPT does recognize as an acceptable academy. So Stelzer interviewed with us. She was very impressive in her interview. One of the more impressive that we've ever spoken to, so we're excited to get her on. I put forth the form to sign for the permanent exemption with the MPT from the full-time academy. I have reached out to the exemption people, explained her background. They did say that it should be favorable for the exemption, so that's what we're expecting. It is a 11-man or 11-person voting block, and we have to wait till they give us the official, but that's what we're expecting at this point.
And if that does come to pass, that means Sarah can be on the road quickly.
What you have to do is, there's an exam that you take, and then she would get into FTO.
Okay, very good. Sarah, would you like to tell us anything about yourself that the chief hasn't said?
Nothing in particular, I guess. Just thank you for welcoming me. I recently relocated after a deployment from Connecticut to Massachusetts. So when I interviewed with Middleton, it was great, and I'm just excited to be part of the community.
Board have any questions?
Like, welcome to Middleton.
Thank you for applying.
So I will entertain a motion to appoint Sarah as Stelzer as a full-time Middleton police officer.
I'll make the motion to appoint Officer Sarah Stelzer? Police.
Jackie, for a period through,
June 30th, 27, right? Or no, 8.
all right,
With a probationary period of 1 year.
Second.
any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Congratulations and welcome to Middleton.
Okay, sorry.
Item, which is a commendation for officer actions, Sergeant Ronald Carpenter and Officer Henry Bouchard.
Oh, this is intimate. Like a little Starship Enterprise here.
Up usually means on.
And we're back.
Electric bill already?
As you know, I don't typically bring people before the board unless it's something that I think qualifies for an active ballot. We have 2 officers here who, the acts they did that night were not only heroic, but they saved a person's life that was in a time of crisis. A lot of times we have, officers that are in that situation that we are concerned with how they're going to handle it. That night, we had the 2 perfect officers on. We have a lot of experience here. We have a real understanding of the job, real understanding about tactics, tactical situations. So bear with me, I just have a little bit of to read, so I want to make sure we get this correctly. The incident happened on January 15th in Middleton. On that evening, the Middleton police responded to a residential address involving a 32-year-old male party who was armed with a machete and actively cutting himself in the basement of the family's home. The suspect was known to the police and has a history of mental health issues and assaulting law enforcement. Upon arrival, the officers met with the suspect's grandparents, who invited them into the home and subsequently called for the suspect to come upstairs from his bedroom in the basement. When the suspect came up the stairs from the basement, officers observed blood on his hands and learned that he was in possession of a knife. They asked him if he had a knife. He took the knife out and threw it to the floor. The suspect was agitated at the presence of the officers and continued to tell the officers to leave. The officers attempted to de-escalate the situation. However, the suspect became increasingly agitated and began stating that he wanted to kill himself via suicide by cop. The suspect then stated that he had a machete in his bedroom, which he would retrieve and start to hurt some people. The suspect then ran downstairs to the bedroom, shut and locked the doors. The officers followed the suspect downstairs and could hear him speaking on the phone to unknown persons and heard him saying that he wanted to die by suicide by cop. The suspect then opened the bedroom door, at which time Sergeant Carpenter observed that the suspect was holding a machete. The suspect again shut the door, at which time the officers climbed up the stairs and attempted to de-escalate the situation by continuing to communicate in tactics to reduce conflict intensity, aiming to avoid and minimize force by creating space, slowing the situation down, allowing for better decision-making, and encouraging voluntary compliance. At this time, due to the suspect was armed with a barricaded weapon in his room, the decision was made to call the SWAT team. The suspect then exited his room armed with a machete. The officers maintained their position of cover from the top of the stairs while giving verbal commands to the suspect to drop the machete. The suspect yelled for the officers to shoot him or he would chop their heads off, pointing the machete and waving it at the officers. Sergeant Carpenter continued to give verbal commands for the suspect to drop the machete while keying his radio's microphone, allowing responding units to hear how the situation was deteriorating. The suspect again reiterated, retreated to his bedroom with the machete. The standoff continued while Sergeant Carpenter continued to order the suspect to drop the machete. The suspect continued to make statements that he was going to kill the officers and would force the officers to shoot him, wanting to, again, die by suicide by cop. The family was also pleading with the suspect to surrender, that he needed help, and to go to the hospital. And at that time, the suspect said he would kill them as well. At one point, the suspect began walking up the stairs with the machete towards the officers and actually shut off the lights in the stairwell. The suspect walked halfway up the stairs, stopped, and subsequently retreated back downstairs around the corner and out of the officer's line of sight. Sergeant Carpenter turned the stairwell lights back on. The suspect then reappeared and now was holding a backpack, which he claimed held explosives. The suspect again retreated out of the officer's sight. The suspect was then observed by perimeter units exiting the rear of the home and running down the street. Officer Bouchard exited his home, drove his cruiser towards the direction of the suspect, intercepting him walking on the sidewalk. Officer Bouchard observed that the suspect was wearing the backpack and still had the machete in his hand. Officer Bouchard commanded the suspect to drop the machete, a command which he ignored again. Officer Bouchard then deployed his taser, which incapacitated the suspect, causing him to fall to the ground and drop the machete. Officer Bouchard was then able to take the suspect into custody with the assistance of responding officers. The suspect was subsequently transported to Beverly Hospital and charged with threatening to commit a crime of murder, assault and battery with a dangerous weapon. That night, I was listening to the radio like I always do. I heard that call come out to that particular address, which we were familiar with. The officers went off. Clearly, I was monitoring the situation because of what it was. Didn't hear anything for a little bit of time. I got a call from Officer Bouchard stating, we have a barricaded suspect in the basement. Can we call out SWAT? Clearly, that was a SWAT maneuver. We called out SWAT, and I started heading to the scene. As Sergeant Carpenter keyed up his radio again, this is the wherewithal. We're going through all this to key it up so that people responding would understand what the situation was and how grave it was becoming. In my experience, the reason I was going was I was expecting the next thing to come over that radio was shots fired. That was just what I was expecting to do. The entire time up was what I was expecting. Shots fired, shots fired. And again, the way they would handle this guy, knowing he was in crisis, knowing the dangers to themselves, but still took the proper actions to continue to de-escalate the situation while he was escalating the situation, is again, it just shows to their valor, it shows to their, their training, their experience, and these are two of the, the more dedicated officers that handled this situation better. It couldn't have got any better. I actually was showing up because I was not expecting the next call to say he was running down the street. I'm coming around the corner as he's running towards me on the street with the machete. Officer Bouchard intercepts him. The guy stops, and he hits him with the taser and drops him. Had I been there 30 seconds earlier, he probably would have been shot because I would have been coming out with a guy coming at me. Again, their actions saved that person's life that day, and it could not come to a better a better ending. So, like I said, I don't bring this stuff before. These two will sit here and say, we just did our job. They're not the ones that come up here and want to be heroes. They're not firemen. Just kidding. So, but that's what I'm here. Unbelievable job. Like I said, they saved a life that night. They went home safely. It couldn't have been a better job.
So, we and all the residents of Middleton, appreciate all the dedication and knowledge and effort that our police and fire put into doing their job and keeping our community, safe. And I know that, this was sort of a harrowing incident, and I believe Officer Bouchard was also part of the responders to that incident a couple of years ago on Stanley Road where the woman, a father attacked his daughter. So, to me, being able to deal with those situations is a mark of a special person. And, Sergeant Carpenter, doing with his ski, that's a sign of experience and knowing how to control a situation. So we are all very happy to have you guys on our police force.
Absolutely.
So thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. And I'd just like to add, Chief, thank you for bringing this to our attention. Not just see the little blurb that goes in the newspaper under a police log. This is so much more. And I'm glad you shared it with us. Thank you.
Thank you.
And if I could, Mr. Chairman, I say it over and over again, and if it's, redundant, I know. So much goes on in the field of first responder that most people don't see it all the time, unless you're the victim or you're the perpetrator. And, you drive by, you see the fire trucks come out of the brand-new building, it's gonna be nice. You see the blue lights on the side of the road. There's so much that goes on to it for everyone in town, and the professionalism and dedication that I know that people that work those jobs in this town, the town should be proud of them, because I know that man, he wanted to die that night, but because of you two and the courage that you guys have, he didn't. So, again, just want to reiterate, thank you very much for everything you do. Thank you.
Welcome aboard, Sarah.
That will be a tough act to follow for our next agenda item is a budget discussion with our State House delegation. Yeah.
Wonderful, yes.
Yeah, he's going to be, that's it, yeah.
Mr. Tar,
Yes, ma'am.
would you mind posing with Sandy College, please?
I would be honored.
I appreciate it.
Left when you face it.
Glad to know you're still on. What are we facing? We're facing the board, right?
Friends with your
So,
family for a very long time.
I understand.
Grandfather raised them good stock. You guys have given so much.
So, yes, I'll be on the left.
Yeah, no, it's too late. It's too late. Great job, though. Yeah. John, Henry? All right, very good. Stay safe. If they have questions.
My goodness,
His,
that really puts
his grandfather.
things in perspective, doesn't it?
Oh, really? Yeah. Yeah, they had an auction house here in town.
Representative Jones, thank you for coming out on this snowy night to give us some news.
Mr. Chairman, there's nothing better on a snowy night than to be meeting with the Middleton Select Boards.
Really?
And they're brand new hearing room here in the new
Yeah, this is
Middleton
fantastic.
Yeah.
Town Hall complex.
Complex.
What do we call it?
Congratulations.
Municipal complex.
Congratulations.
Good things come to those who wait. This is living proof.
Assistance and, various efforts in funding, this, you played a role too, just like all the other people that were downstairs for the dedication.
This happens without an incredible team effort, and we're just proud to be part of the team and proud that the town believed in itself enough to be able to accomplish this building that we're in right now. Yeah. Yeah.
Extraordinary.
Well, it was also the leadership that gave the town the confidence to do that. The research that was done, the planning, the presentations that were made, those are reflective of the fact, again, that the town felt confident in making those big decisions. And that's a testament to everybody that's been
It's
involved.
demonstrating the need, understanding the need, and then putting the people in place that the citizenry trusts
Yeah,
to have things like this happen.
yeah. Yeah.
So on that happy note, we'll call it a night. No.
Sounds good to me.
Talking about, the FY27 budget, I'm sure you've heard it from, your other communities and Mass Municipal Association, unrestricted government aid, it's, it's not where it was 20 years ago. The state revenues have exploded in that time. So we just like to get a little slice of that, a little more than 2.5% increase. And
The oil bill for here is, the gas bill for here is going to exceed that.
so that's one area of concern for us. Another area is, minimum educational aid. The governor's budget has $75. Last year, after the House and Senate finished, it was, 104. By the time, and I have every confidence that the legislature will increase that number. The difficulty is that budgets, municipal budgets and school budgets are set well before the state budget, so it ultimately helps, but it doesn't help for the next fiscal year because the governor's $75 is. So if you can legislatively increase that amount so that the next governor's budget comes in with a higher number, it would be appreciated. And there's also, some discussion about, the excise tax and the registry, not being used as a sort of an enforcement mechanism, if that will devastate, collections, because that's really the only enforcement mechanism there is. On real estate taxes, you can get a lien on the property, but if somebody's, registration or license is held up because they're not paying their excise tax, that's really the only force that there is. And one other item, in moving to this, facility, the town clerk, state central voter registry communication is still at, the other, and it's the state that needs to move it to, to here, so.
And we're hoping to
Expedite
relieve the
them.
schools from the polling location and bring it here to where we're.
One of the many impressive aspects of this facility is the fact that it will be able to host voting as opposed to having it in the school. I think we all appreciate the years that it's been at the school, and it worked well because people made it work well. But to be able to have the polling place literally down the hall from the clerk's office is a tremendous thing, so.
Check a question or
We-
registration or whatever, you can do it.
Even moving all of her equipment, I mean, the DPW, the police, some of that has to be done in, relation to the police moving it, because it has to be watched and supervised, and, it's goes a lot deeper, so it's so huge that it's here.
So I think everyone in the universe understands the Middleton Town Clerk is a force to be reckoned with. We had a conversation with her this evening about this, and we're going to do what we can to try to expedite that, because it's unfortunate to have her having to work from 2 locations. It's inefficient at the very least, so we're going to do what we can to be helpful with that, with the central voter registry. And Costa, you raised a lot of points, as you usually do. I'm going to try to unpack them a little bit. Maybe not in the order that you presented them, but I'll try to catch them all. So one of the tools that we have sometimes used over the years in the legislature is an early local aid resolution. And for a number of years, that was standard practice, that we would split out unrestricted general government aid and Chapter 70 and a couple of the minor local aid accounts. And we would pass a number that you could rely on as a minimum in advance of debating the entire budget. That was a good practice in terms of allowing communities to plan with town meetings coming up and putting the budgets together. But the difficulty came that in a couple of those years, the more recent ones, the bodies decided to set that as the maximum and not allow it to change in the budget debate. And so that's why, among many of us, the practice of doing an early local aid resolution fell out of favor, because when we're looking at the entire budget picture, we'd like to be able to have the opportunity to increase those numbers even more. So there's a little bit of tension around that, but know that it's still a tool to be available. With regard to minimum per pupil aid, and you and I have had a chance to talk about this quite a bit, certainly it will be one of our objectives to increase minimum per pupil aid. However, it's also one of our longer-term objectives to ensure that Middleton no longer receives only minimum per pupil aid, nor does Masconomet. Right now, out of every school district in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, at least 270 receive minimum per pupil aid. That should not be our goal. So as a short-term measure, we will work to increase it once again this year, as we will the special education circuit breaker, as we will regional school transportation. The last 2 are particularly important because they do not run through the Chapter 70 formula. So when we put money into those, you benefit equally with every other community in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, which is why oftentimes we focus on those things rather than a gigantic increase in Chapter 70, which doesn't net you that much at the end of the day. The governor has proposed an increase of about $242 million for Chapter 70. And frankly, that's in alignment with the Student Opportunity Act, that is one of the final investments that we will make in the Student Opportunity Act. And many of us are hoping that as we close the books on that initiative and it's fully phased in, we will look at an overall reform of the Chapter 70 formula. because we'll have the opportunity to do it because the increases attributable to the Student Opportunity Act will be fully phased in. So with new revenue coming in, we'll have the opportunity, hopefully, to revisit the formula and help the 270 communities that are only getting minimum per pupil aid. So in the near term, our goal is to boost those accounts to help everybody get through this year. But in the long term, our goal is to be able to move from a situation where we have only minimum per pupil aid. Now, the difficulty is that our formula is based on student enrollment. And in the vast majority of suburban school districts in Massachusetts, enrollment is dropping. And so we have a clash that's occurring here where we have decreasing enrollment but increasing cost. And that delta is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So we have to find ways to address that and reduce that gap. One of them, for instance, would be addressing the inflation factor in the Chapter 70 formula, which woefully underestimates inflation. Another way to do it would be to address the factor for students enrolled in special education, which is also not reflective of what is really happening in our school districts. And those two things represent significant cost factors. So we scored a little bit of a victory in the current fiscal year budget in that we didn't get the full Foundation Budget Review Commission that many of us have been pursuing for many years. But what we did get was a study of local contribution, what a community should be expected to pay on its own for K through 12 education. And that's important for many reasons, but one of them is if you take the total cost of education and you take the local contribution, the difference is aid, Chapter 70 aid. So we're looking at a piece of that right now, and DESE did a number of hearings out in the field. They have not produced their report yet. We're anticipating that within the next month or so to help shine a little bit of light on the situation. So there are a lot of moving pieces, and many of us will be trying in the budget to get the full Foundation Budget Review Commission stood up and operating. Now, one of the things that's important about that is that when we did the Student Opportunity Act, we actually amended it to say that it has to be reviewed every 10 years. So never again do we wind up with a situation where 30 years goes by, the foundation budget is in woeful disalignment with realities in our schools, and we have to play catch up with these massive amounts of owed money. So hopefully we'll get there, but also we'll be working on those accounts. With regard to unrestricted general government aid, you are right, and I wish I had brought it. I wish I had brought the chart that I often use on the floor of the Senate to show the increase in the state budget over the last 10 years. And it's incredible to look at that line, that very steep line of increase. And as you accurately point out, UGA was reduced as a percentage of that budget. The governor has proposed a modest increase. It's certainly one of our priorities. I think I can speak for all of us to try to increase that number. And I mentioned to Brad when we were sitting here before Sally came in that I think one of the emerging themes in this year's budget debates in the House and the Senate will be UGA and trying to change that number and try to move it up. There has been some concern about the formula by which it is distributed, but it is not nearly as dysfunctional as the Chapter 70 formula. But there have been some discussions about we really should look at UGA as well. But in this case, what we really need is a major infusion of dollars. So let me think of, excise tax collection. That has been a hotly discussed topic. There are some among our colleagues that believe that it's unfair to deprive someone of their transportation because of money owed. And for instance, if someone needs to get to a job and they can't renew their license or they can't renew their registration, then it makes the situation worse because they're not earning income to be able to pay the obligation that they owe. But your point about the efficacy of the state collecting those owed amounts as opposed to the municipalities is very well taken. And over the last few weeks, we've started to hear that a lot. So there's been a little bit of pushback. Whereas I think if we went back 2 months, many folks would say there was consensus around the legislation that's moving. I'm not so sure that that consensus is complete right now as some would think it would be.
Can I just say something? I'd just like to add something to the excise. Being in assessing, I can tell you, we have a lot of people that come across our desk often that have not paid their excise. They come in, of course, it's our fault, but without that being said, they do get that paid because they do need to get to work. And when it comes down to, the common phrase is, I just came back from the registry, they won't give me my license. It is common. And I can tell you, we have a kiosk right there at our counter. They pay it right to our deputy collector at that time. So it does get done. And we just have to keep as much local funds as we can. And that is huge. I mean, I know my excise for North Reading is 3.9 this year. You know, we can't lose a quarter of that. We can't lose even an eighth of that. So.
Let's say this tax late, unless you're buying a brand-new vehicle that's worth X amount of dollars, excise isn't that much money. You know, I'm sorry, and especially if you're working, you know, I mean, you know, I'm paying 100, whatever, I mean, I question why anyway, just saying, I mean, we're not talking about exorbitant sum of money. That's really tough for someone to overcome. But just not. And if you are with the brand new vehicle and everything, well, then I guess, you know, it's not that hard for you. I don't know how else to say it.
I think we agree, Rick. Depreciation schedule for excise tax is pretty steep. In other words, it declines pretty quickly from when you first purchase the vehicle. I just wanted to make a point because I overlooked it. So UGA, the governor has suggested a $33 million increase or 2.5% over the current fiscal year. I think we collectively would hope to do better than that. But the point about the conversation about enforcement of excise tax delinquency, it has literally changed over the last couple of weeks as the points that you're making have been raised by more communities and more vocally. And by the way, I don't want to monopolize the conversation, so.
Yeah, I was gonna say, please do.
These are some of the points, you know, I raised, you know, Justin, over the course of time, we've mentioned other things. Is there anything we're forgetting to bring up?
Specifically financial, because there is one more item on the agenda this evening relative to 3A zoning. But I think we've talked that one out. So I have nothing to add. Thank you.
Before we move on, first of all, I want to commend Justin and Jackie for providing us with great information when we need it about the town's priorities for us to try to include in the budget. And we've had a tremendous amount of success because they provide us good information. And in fact, some of that work is what led to some of the assistance we were able to provide for this complex. And I would just say that we recently sent out our request for the coming fiscal year and just would ask that they return to us a set of priorities as quickly as you can, because for the House, that process is probably already underway, and it soon will be for us in terms of trying to determine what we may try to put into the budget. And I think, as you've seen over the last several years, we've worked as a team with a significant amount of creativity to maximize the benefit for particular projects in the community. So the sooner we have that information, the sooner we can plot strategy to make sure things are included in both versions, the House and Senate version of the budget, which gives them a far greater chance of emerging victorious at the end of the process.
So the elephant in the room is 3A. Justin mentioned it. Is there anything any of you can do to, you know, we're one of the handful of towns being sued by the state. Is there anything any of you can think of that you can do to help us with that?
So we've had some experience trying to change this law. None of it has been met with any success. I know that Brad has offered.
I would say at a time when there were a greater number of communities that were in Middleton's situation.
So we've tried and we've tested the waters, and I think it's fair to say there has been no appetite generally among our colleagues. We will continue, of course, to try to help Middleton with regard to its struggle to be able to get state resources. I think it's particularly egregious that the $2 million plus, which is focused on a project that involves 2 state highways, has not been able to be secured. So we'll try, Jeff, on an individual basis, but in terms of statutory change, I wouldn't want to give you any illusions. It's very difficult.
I think we also have to be on the watch for making sure there's not statutory additions to the list of things that can be held against. Because I know a year ago, they were looking at fire safety grants for a while, and then the governor backed away from that pretty quickly. Thankfully.
Yeah. Well,
making sure nothing else gets in there statutory, and there are
Pretty
some
loud
other
about
things.
that.
and actually, speaking of that, for this round, the initial response given from Department of Fire Services to Chief LaCoults was that Middleton would not be eligible. And this is an example. We swung into action, advocated for that not to be the case, and we're able to work together. So those are the kind of things that we can, we're happy to do it. I think it's fundamental fairness that firefighter safety should not be jeopardized because of zoning policy.
With your assistance, we're able, to get pilot payments for the jail. That's, another account that needs to be pumped up because, that land was added, but I don't think there was a lot of change to the overall account. It just split the pie a little, one more way, so pumping that up translates to some additional revenue for Middleton.
And Brad quarterbacked that effort, and we all worked together. And one of the areas of resistance that we met was exactly that. Some folks said, well, if we add Middleton land, but we don't add any money to the overall pool, then everybody gets less. So, but through a team effort, we're able to overcome that, so.
Well, I think it's important to get it on the books so that when an opportunity, I won't promise that this year's not going to be the best opportunity. I think I'd rather focus on UGA. But Bruce is right. When you change the formula, you can derive a great formula, but if you do it outside of the money that's available, you'd fall short, and if you just base it on the money. So it's trying to have kind of a symbiotic relationship there. We did, getting the the foundation budget review was a multi-year effort in the first place. That led to the Student Opportunity Act. And at the time, everybody, was encouraging us to be supportive of it. But the Student Opportunity Act was very heavily focused on additional resources to bring up results in communities, to bring them up to Masco and Middleton and communities. And that's where disproportionately the money went. And hopefully now that we're in year 7, the final year, it'll be a new opportunity to kind of say, okay, how do we now say, if people have been brought up, how do we do that going forward? And allocate those resources.
Used for the millionaire's tax revenue that 50% is supposed to go to education. Where is that money being spent?
Student Opportunity Act increase, full day
Free full-day kindergarten, free school meals. There's a lot of it going into higher education right now, free community college. There are a lot of things, and one of the original parts of the philosophy about the millionaire's tax was that it shouldn't be used to supplant existing spending accounts. And so there was a concern that if we used it to bolster Chapter 70, it would be doing exactly that. However, we have since set precedent that we would use some of it, particularly for circuit breaker and special education reimbursement. So that's certainly on the table. There is legislation currently moving that the Senate did about 2 weeks ago now called the Bright Act. Actually, it was last
We already
week.
did it.
Yeah. So that sets aside money for higher education and transportation. And the remainder, in theory, would be available for K through 12. So still on the table. We're still trying to work it out, so.
I would say the first year afterwards, I think there was some debate about how much money would actually come in.
Yeah.
Some low, and then there was a supplemental bill, we did some, and the money was spent on transportation, that's why there was some extra Chapter 90 money, and transportation money, so it's still a work in progress.
Very much so, just sort of beginning. I did just want to, so I thank my two colleagues here. And we do work very well, and we do work in a bipartisan fashion, even though I'm outnumbered.
Oh, yeah.
Here at this table, I am outnumbered, am I not? Am I not?
Wow.
So, I thought I
It's
was
the new
being
math.
collegial. I did just, so first of all, it's very exciting to be here at your new municipal complex, town hall, community center. I want to congratulate everybody. I also want to thank Justin and Jackie for good information. If I've heard Jackie talk about UGA once over the past few months, I've heard it several, so, hi Jackie, how are you doing? UGA. Jackie, how's the complex coming? UGA. It's all she's interested in besides this, so we hear you. Last year was the second or third year in a row when I was in a conversation with the chair of the Ways and Means Committee, and I said, look, Masco is looking again at overrides. Wenham, again, looking at overrides. We need to reassess the formula. And he said, we're not going to do that until SOA is fully funded after 7 years. Now we are there. So as Bruce said, hopeful that we can look at that formula. It's a very muted mood around the budget this year, the most muted since I've been back. There's this recognition that we have double-digit healthcare costs that are whacking us in every single budget, state, federal. We won't even get into the federal sort of departure from standard practice, the millions that we have lost. We have a gaping hole in our state budget to deal with. So all by way of saying, as Bruce and Brad have said, it's a work in progress. It's kind of just getting going. And you know how this goes. It's always the governor goes first. And so then everyone is, wound up about what the governor has. And I always say, that's a nice suggestion. We will take it from there. And at the end of it, we will do the very best we can for you at the local level, trying very hard to deal with, and we've talked about this so many times, the structural deficit, because Prop 2.5 only allows so much of an increase, 3 or 4% generally, and double-digit healthcare cost increases. So it's a tough situation. We do have the millionaire tax, half to transportation, half to education. We met this morning over in Salem, Phil Eng from the T, and I was trying to make him understand that for places like here, Middleton, Danvers, it's not all about the rail and the T. Those are important, but we need assistance to get there, to avail ourselves of the T and the rails. So he's doing amazing work. I encourage you to kind of follow along with what he's doing. If he taught a course, I would take it. I don't know if he has a podcast, but it's a great sort of snapshot of economically where we are headed, what we have to be mindful of, and yet we also have to be very mindful of, like right here on Main Street in Middleton, you have to reckon with cost increases too. And we have to recognize that and be there for you. So, ugga.
Or reducing our MBTA assessments so we don't get any service.
I mean, at some point, you wonder, will the conversation turn to a regional transit authority? You know, could we join CADA? But
Well, we have begun to take some steps down that road by giving grants for regional transit authorities to interconnect, which is something we should have done a long time ago, so that they're not within their own cells, that they create a network. But I think it's fair to say we're trying to take the UGG out of UGA.
well said.
I was gonna touch on, obviously, one of the positive elements is the Maple Street bridges.
I was gonna bring that up, yep.
Because I remember, I think all of us remember, even to,
We had the design public hearing was January 7th.
that's been a discussion for.
A long time.
Yeah.
They're moving toward the permitting phase, and we're gonna get the permanent pedestrian rail trail bridge, and we were quite pleased. Yeah, I mean, gotta say thank you, when it comes, because, I mean, the town will be pleased with that when that's complete. Hopefully, was it gonna be inside of 28, or, yeah. So an 18-month job, so they got the design done, and now they'll move forward on the permitting and whatnot, and, but no, it's gonna, speaking of transportation, it's gonna help us a lot and, connect us even better than this. We're missing that segment to Danvers, because of the bridge, but it's gonna come and, safety and all. So that's very positive, and we'll be pleased. I think the town will be pleased with the result of that.
It's a wonderful recognition of the work you, Rick, and others have done to create that trail network and to be able to accommodate it in such a strong way with its own bridge is really a wonderful development, but it's a testament to the work that happened locally, too.
The final design plan and the construction phasing, I think, was about as good as could be expected.
Yeah.
We've talked about things that we'd like your help on. Is there anything that we can do to make your ability to achieve that, or other things? Is there anything we can do for you?
Snowflakes money.
I just appreciate I feel like I'm at home when I'm in Middleton. I do. So I appreciate the kind of relationships that we have, the easy access. It's helpful. It is helpful. In a moment's notice, we can get to anybody.
And I would say that is the most important thing. The partnership that we have with you, both the board and the administration, is really extremely helpful. And it helps us to be well-informed. It helps us to target areas that we can make a difference. And it helps us to be nimble, because sometimes an opportunity presents and we don't have a lot of time. And the information you give us is extremely helpful. And I think it's fair to say we're all very, very proud to represent you in our respective bodies.
We're very lucky to have all three.
Mr. Chair?
Yes?
Sorry, one item did come to mind, and I guess first I do also want to echo the sentiment for the three of you and your staff as well, as oftentimes when we reach out, it's what do you need and when do you need it? And I know you can't do everything all the time, but when you can do it, you deliver, so it's certainly appreciated. So thank you for that partnership. I don't know if it came up, but SESD relative to Locust Street. So there's a town-owned parcel off Locust Street. I was purchased, 25 years ago now, roundabout, with the intention of building a school on it. Middleton ended up rehabbing or rebuilding on the existing
How many?
Thank you, How Manning Middle School parcel. And we've just been holding on to that parcel of land. The select board's been having conversations for the past year about whether or not it's time to let go of that piece of land, and if so, what would it look like? We've had a lot of conversations around affordable housing, despite Middleton's reputation as being anti-housing. We've actually done a lot of work for moving the needle towards affordable housing, particularly in a community like Middleton that makes sense. That's true to Middleton's rural character. And so when it comes to Locust Street, we talked about a design by right and what that would look like, and I think it was something like 12 units, or something more non-traditional like cluster development that would be maybe 17 units by right, condenses things a little bit and maintains a larger piece of open space. But as part of that, that parcel is a stone's throw away from existing sewer infrastructure with SESD, which, as you know, we're limited in tying into that for future units. But there may be an interest from the community to try to get some type of movement to pull that line towards that parcel to help us kind of make things make sense over there. The downside is the traditional route I think we'd go for that is a Housing Works grant, but we're not allowed to get those anymore. So despite our best efforts to help with the housing issue, we're actually being hamstrung from the irony is like killing me every single day, unfortunately. But I think that's something that eventually may come down the road as well.
And I guess, will the things that Middleton is prohibited from getting, how likely is it to be expanded into the realm like the MSBA? Is that a possibility?
Correct me, I feel like money that we appropriate is money that we have appropriated. I don't know if anyone has a different understanding, maybe some of our, but to my way of thinking, they've specified the Master Works, what are they called?
MassWorks.
MassWorks grants. And I will say I'm a supporter of this administration, but I am bothered by how.
I understand what Sally's saying, but I would say that the legislature, I think we have a Chapter 90 issue because there was Chapter 90 money and then there was another piece that was reserved.
The money. Yeah.
So even though that money was appropriated, it was still in line with MBT. So that's
I
why
don't
I'm
see
saying
us
we have to be
extending to,
mindful of that.
yeah. Do you see any possibility of the community revisiting a plan to become compliant?
I think collectively, if I may, Costa, collectively, we've gone to the table and it has failed twice, unanimously. I know the administration is keeping a running tally list of everything we get notified, you're not eligible, you're not eligible. So if come that day that we do entertain going back to town meeting for compliance, we have something to show them. But in all honesty, they didn't care. They did not, the taxpayers did not care. They spoke that they did not want to be held strong-armed by the government. And it was a clear message, twice.
We've had this discussion a number of times. Obviously, we're in Middleton situated relative to service and not contiguous in that, but the growth in Middleton over the past 20 years, 15 years, you're talking about maybe this is housing over there, friendly 40Bs, other 40Bs. It's not like you're not building housing in Middleton.
Correct.
That's what's frustrating. And what's frustrating in this law is you don't get any credit for it. It's all sort of like, well, it has to be there over there, and that's all that's going to count. But if you do anything over here, it doesn't count at all, and that's very frustrating. And
It's only zoning, remember?
it's only zoning.
I'm not going to defend the
No, it's only zoning, but the
sort
only
of
point I'm making
stubbornness,
is that
but
the
it is
idea
only zoning.
Is that the community's adding to the housing stock,
I understand, I appreciate that.
you know?
Every year, we are adding. I mean, sitting on the assessing side on, even in this town, I look at, I'm privy to how many of the housing stock we're adding on the LA4 every single year, twice a year. So we are adding, and we're still not being given any credit for that.
I think the irony that has come out of this conversation is you get more for a plan than building a unit of housing.
I know.
Truth.
And the housing doesn't even have to be affordable.
Mr. Chair, before we let the delegation go, we do also want to thank them for their staff working with us to shepherd our charter changes through the legislature, and I just want to say thank you to your staff, because I know they're doing a lot of work behind the scenes with House and Senate Council. Yeah, I believe JJ sent something back to, yeah, so thank you all for your staff's help with, thank you.
We greatly appreciate you taking the time to
Certainly
come
do.
and to discuss these issues, and
We appreciate it.
We can't see outside, so we have to.
knowing so,
It did. I was told it did.
okay. So,
Here, too,
Yes,
but
yes.
This celebration and hearing about Officers Bouchard and Carpenter, just
New
incredible.
addition to the department and.
And a new officer. It was a very big night here at Hall Municipal Complex and Community Center. Did I get it right?
coached Officer Bouchard in U10 soccer.
To hear that, so you should be so proud.
That's right.
Yes, the legendary Henry Bouchard. And he's a Pollock too, right on the other side. So-
Okay.
All right, guys, thank you.
Thank you very much, all three of you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Congratulations again on your wonderful new complex.
So exciting. It really is so exciting.
Yeah, we'll have you back when we do our larger event, once the grounds are done.
Not snow covered.
I was so sick of the snow.
We'll make sure that it's decent weather, like it won't be 110, but it won't be -7.
Yeah. And then that topping ceremony was like 10
Yeah,
out.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Thank you so much. Have a great evening.
All right. Before we go to our executive session, are there any updates or announcements by any members?
I actually would like to have one announcement, and that's to our DPW. Our DPW, I have to tell you, I drive roads for a couple of different towns and through many towns, and I must say, our roads are the cleanest. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, DPW staff, and thank you for keeping us safe. And those storms have been very treacherous. They're long. They're not 3 inches. They're 2 feet. And this staff has, and this department has just really kept our roads so wonderful and clean and just passable. So I just want to make that comment and say thank you to DPW.
Great comment, true comment, yeah.
All right, anyone else? All right, our last agenda item is to go into executive session pursuant to General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to litigation relative to the MBTA Communities Act, and we would not be returning to open session. Is there a motion?
So moved.
A second. All in favor?
We need a roll?
We need to do.
We got a roll call.
Okay, roll call.
Rick?
Yes.
Costa?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yeah.
And I am a yes.
We'll be adjourning to executive session and not returning.